Hello, girls and boys, and welcome to your Read Aloud number 7. Here's our vocabulary words for today's Read Aloud. Our first word is blues. That's a state of depression or unhappiness. Example, Shirley has the blues today because it's raining and she can't go outside to play. Capital. This is a different meaning of a word that you might be familiar with, and in this meaning, it means excellent. Here's an example. After enjoying a capital dinner of steak and mashed potatoes, the three friends went for a walk. Dismally. That means gloomily, hopelessly. This hill is so big, Tara said dismally. I'll never make it to the top. Forage. To seek, search, or look around. Example. Clara didn't have time to go to the grocery store, so she had to forage through her cabinets to find something to eat. Perceive. To notice something through the senses. To interpret something in a particular way. Example. Do you perceive the length of daylight getting shorter each day as we go from fall to winter? And our last word, slumber. Sleep. Example. Eva fell into a slumber during the car ride to Grandma's house. Let's review our themes. Remember, a theme is a broad idea that comes up many times over the course of a story. In this story, we have a few themes: friendship, loyalty, hospitality, and responsibility and irresponsibility. We've also learned quite a few literary tools or elements. First, we've learned about perspective. That's from whom the story is being told, from whose eyes. We have dialogue, which comes inside of quotation marks. It's what your characters are saying. We have narration, which is the other part of the story where someone's explaining what's happening. And of course, we have theme, which we've discussed. Today, you're going to hear the second half of the chapter, Dulce Domum, which you began in yesterday's lesson. Remember, Dulce Domum means home sweet home. At the end of the previous read aloud, Mole is following his unerring nose down a tunnel. I want you to predict what you think will happen in today's read aloud. Try to draw on the themes we have learned about so far in your prediction. How might some of the themes of friendship, loyalty, hospitality, responsibility, or irresponsibility play a role in this second half of the chapter? Listen carefully to find out if your predictions are correct. It was close and airless, and the earthy smell was strong. The mole struck a match, and by its light the rat saw that they were standing in an open space. The space was neatly swept and sanded underfoot. Directly facing them was Mole's front door, with "Mole Inn" painted in Gothic lettering over the bell pull at the side. Here it is here. Gothic lettering is a fancy writing style or a type font. Mole took down a lantern from a nail on the wall and lit it. And the rat, looking around him, saw that they were in a sort of forecourt. A forecourt is a small courtyard or space in front of a home. A garden seat stood on one side of the door, and on the other a roller. The mole was a tidy animal and could not stand having his ground kicked up by other animals into little heaps of earth. A roller is a heavy metal or stone cylinder used to flatten and level the ground. Here's a picture of a roller. Since moles like to burrow and tunnel in the ground, what effects do you think moles have on a yard? What do you think of Mole having a roller? Down on one side of the forecourt ran a skittle alley with benches along it and little wooden tables. Skittles is a lawn game similar to bowling, and the skittle alley is like a bowling alley except outside on a lawn. In the middle was a small round pond. Mole's face beamed at the sight of all these objects. He hurried Rat through the door, lit a lamp in the hall, and took one glance around his old home. Immediately he saw the dust lying thick on everything, saw the cheerless, deserted look of the long-neglected house, and collapsed again on the hall chair. "Oh, Ratty," he cried dismally, "why ever did I do it? Why did I bring you to this poor, cold little place on a night like this?" The Rat paid no heed to him. He was running here and there, opening doors, inspecting rooms and cupboards, and lighting lamps and candles. "What a capital little house this is!" he called out cheerily. "Everything here and everything in its place. The first thing we want is a good fire. I'll fetch the wood and the coals, and you get a duster." Encouraged by his companion, the Mole dusted and polished with energy, while the Rat soon had a cheerful blaze roaring up the chimney. He hailed the Mole to come and warm himself, but Mole promptly had another fit of the blues. "Rat," he moaned, "how about your supper? You poor, cold, hungry, weary animal! I've nothing to give you." "What a fellow you are for giving in," said the Rat calmly. "Why, only just now I saw a sardine opener on the kitchen dresser, and everybody knows that means there are sardines about somewhere. Pull yourself together and come with me and forage." Forage means to look for or search for something. They went and foraged accordingly, hunting through every cupboard and turning out every drawer. The result was not so very depressing after all. A tin of sardines, a box of captain's biscuits nearly full, and a German sausage encased in silver paper. "There's a banquet for you," observed the Rat, as he arranged the table. "No bread," groaned the Mole. "No butter, no caviar, no champagne," continued the Rat, grinning. "And that reminds me, what's that little door at the end of the passage? Your cellar, of course." A cellar, sometimes called a basement, is an area that is partly or wholly below ground that may be used as a cool place to store food. Caviar is an expensive delicacy of special salty fish eggs, and champagne is a fancy fizzy type of wine. Is Rat serious or joking when he states that there is no caviar or champagne? Rat made for the cellar door and presently reappeared with a bottle in each paw and another under each arm. "Now, wherever did you pick up those prints? Make the place look so homelike like they do. No wonder you're so fond of it, Mole. Tell us all about it, and how you came to make it what it is." The Mole, much cheered by the Rat's fine compliments, took time to show off his splendid abode. The Rat, though desperately hungry, allowed the Mole to hold court, or talk a bit about his things. At last the Rat succeeded in decoying him or tempting him to the table, and had just got seriously to work with the sardine opener when sounds were heard from the forecourt without, sounds like the scuffling of small feet and a confused murmur of tiny voices. "Now, all in a line. Hold the lantern up a bit, Tommy. Clear your throats first. Where's young Billy?" "What's up?" inquired the Rat. "I think it must be the field mice," replied the Mole. "They go round carols singing regular at this time of year. I used to give them hot drinks and supper too sometimes." "Let's have a look at them," cried the Rat, jumping up and running to the door. It was a pretty sight that met their eyes. In the forecourt, lit by the dim rays of a lantern, some 8 or 10 little field mice stood in a semicircle. They had red scarves around their necks, and their forepaws were thrust deep into their pockets. With bright, beady eyes, they glanced shyly at each other. As the door opened, one of the elder ones that carried the lantern proclaimed, "Now then, 1, 2, 3!" And forthwith their shrill little voices rose up into the chill night air. The voices ceased, the singers exchanged sidelong glances, but for only a moment. Then, from up above and far away, down the tunnel they had so lately traveled, came the sound of distant bells ringing a joyful and clangorous peal. A clangorous peal is the loud clanging or ringing of bells. "Very well sung, boys," cried the Rat heartily. "And now come along in and warm yourselves." Yes, come along, Field Mice, cried the Mole eagerly. This is quite like old times. Shut the door after you. Pull up that settle to the fire. Now you just wait a minute while we Ratty, he cried in despair. We've nothing to give them. You leave all that to me, said the masterful rat. Here, you with the lantern. I want to talk to you. Now, tell me, are there any shops open at this hour of the night? Why, certainly, sir, replied the field mouse respectfully. At this time of the year our shops keep open to all sorts of hours. Then look here, said the rat, you go off at once, and you and your lantern, and you get me. Here a much muttered conversation ensued, such as fresh, mind, no, a pound of that will do. If you can't get it there, try somewhere else. Yes, of course, homemade. Finally, there was a chink of coin passing from paw to paw. The field mouse was provided with a basket for his purchases, and off he hurried. The rest of the field mice, perched in a row on the settle, their small legs swinging, gave themselves up to the enjoyment of the fire. The rat, meanwhile, was busy examining the label on one of the bottles. I perceive this to be ginger beer, he remarked approvingly. The very thing. Now we shall be able to mull some ginger beer. Get the things ready, Mole, while I draw the corks. Ginger beer is non-alcoholic soft drink. Mulling ginger beer means to heat and sweeten the drink. It did not take long to prepare the brew, and soon every field mouse was sipping and coughing and choking. For a little mulled ginger beer goes a long way, and wiping his eyes and laughing. They act plays, too, these fellows, the mole explained to the rat. Make them up all by themselves, and very well they do it, too. They gave us a capital one last year about a field mouse who was captured at sea by pirates. Here, you were in it. Get up and recite a bit. The field mouse addressed got up on his legs, giggled shyly, looked round the room, and remained absolutely tongue-tied. His comrades cheered him on. Mole coaxed and encouraged him, and the rat went so far as to shake him, but nothing could overcome his stage fright. The now mute field mouse was saved from further encouragement by the sound of the door opening. The field mouse with the lantern had reappeared with the heavy basket. There was no more talk of play acting once the contents of the basket had been tumbled out onto the table. Under the generalship of Rat, everybody was set to do something. In a very few minutes supper was ready. As they ate, they talked of old times. They clattered off at last, very grateful indeed. When the door had closed on the last of them, Mole and Rat kicked the fire up, drew their chairs in, and discussed the events of the day. At last, the rat, with a tremendous yawn, said, Mole, I'm ready to drop. That your own bunk over on that side? Very well, then, I'll take this. Rat clambered into his bunk and rolled himself well up in the blankets as slumber gathered him in. Now, girls and boys, we have our discussion questions. Out of all the discussion questions, there's just one today that you need to write a written response to in your ELA composition notebook. Don't forget to put today's date on it. Question 1. At the beginning of the read aloud, Mole looks around dismally at his empty, dusty home and experiences the blues over the state of his home. How does Rat help Mole? What themes do you think Rat's actions demonstrate? Make sure you pause the video so you can answer the questions orally with someone at home. There's no need to write an answer to all of them. Number 2, while Mole and Rat are foraging for food, who comes to the door? What do they do? Number 3 is going to be a written response. How is this theme of hospitality demonstrated through the characters' actions in today's read aloud? Number 5. What words could you use to describe how Mole feels at the end of the evening? Do you think he is glad that he is back in his own home for the evening? Why? How about Rat? Is he comfortable in Mole's home? And last but not least, question number 6. What kind of friend is Rat? In the read aloud, you heard Rat say to Mole, Come with me and forage. Say the word forage with me. On 3, 2, 1. Forage. Squirrels forage for acorns in the fall so they can store them away for the winter. Can you name any other animals that forage for food and the types of food they forage? Be sure to use the word forage when you tell about it. Our final thing is to work together to add to our themes chart. In this story, it shows friendship, loyalty, hospitality, responsibility, and irresponsibility. What happened in this story that would show friendship and loyalty? What happened in this story that would show hospitality? What happened in this story that might show responsibility or irresponsibility? Remember, these are discussion questions, and we'll be filling this chart in for the next lesson. I'll be filling it in after the discussion.